School Jazz Band. It is me, Dr. Money. This week, we will be discussing my favorite jazz saxophonist, Kenny G.
Dr. Money, are you using my webcam again?
No, I was just,
Get out of here. Nobody wants to see you here. Sorry about that. He does that. Well, anyway, while I have you here, now would probably be as good a time as any to talk about our assignment for this week. Our focus for this week is all about improvisation. Fancy that. Similarly to last week, you're going to have an assignment choice where there's 3 different options and you're able to pick between them. But dissimilarly from last week, instead of actually submitting 2 different things, there's only one actual assignment that you're submitting this week. So I'm just going to jump straight in and talk about the assignments for this week and explain them in some detail. So our first assignment for this week, or your first option of an assignment, is to compose 3 different 2-5-1 licks. I explain more in the document, and I also include an example at the bottom. And what I'm going to do right now is open up that example and explain what I'm looking for when I say I want you to compose 2-5-1 licks. So the first component is that it's over a 2-5-1 chord progression, right? So we all know what that is by that point. In terms of what key you do it in, it doesn't matter. I don't care what key center you choose to do it in. I do talk about in the document that I want you to give 3 different 2-5-1 licks, and I want 1 to be in major and 1 to be in minor. So if it's a major 2-5-1, it's going to be a minor 7 chord, and a dominant 7 chord, and then a major 7 chord, right? If it's a minor 2-5-1, it's going to be a half diminished chord to a dominant chord to a minor 7 chord, right? And this example that I give in the document at the bottom is a major 2-5-1 in the key of C. Alright, so what I'm actually going to do is play through it for you. That's not something that you have to do in the assignment, you just have to compose them and send them to me, but I want to play through it so you guys can hear what it sounds like. So, let's try it out. So this is the chord progression. And that's our 2-5-1 lick. So, let's talk about what actually is happening there. Go back to right here. So we can see that we have over the D minor 7 chord, it's just a D minor 7 arpeggio. We're playing nothing but chord tones. We start on the 7th of the chord, we bring it all the way down to the root, and then go back up to the 7th, and we have rhythmic variance, right? We can already see just looking at it that we have quarter notes and 8th notes as well. On the G7 chord, our dominant chord, we break from the previous pattern. We're not just playing chord tones now, we're including some other passing tones as well that are still in the scale but aren't direct chord tones in the chord. But the really important thing that we do see is going right from here, that first note of the G7 chord is a beat, right? So right on the beat, right when the measure came in and the new chord came in, we immediately changed to a chord tone. So that's really important. You want to place those chord tones on really strong beats, like changing to a chord tone of the next chord at the beginning of the next measure. So we go through and, we have something very important happen at the end here. We have an anticipation of the chord tone into the next measure. That's another way that you can do it. Rather than putting the chord tone, having the new chord tone change at the beginning of the measure, you can anticipate it just like this, which is, as we all know, very, very common in jazz. So we changed right here to an E, which is the 3rd of our C major 7 chord. All right. So I'm not necessarily looking for something super specific in particular. I just wanted to have time and thought put into it. So the example that I gave right here was a full measure of D minor 7, a full measure of G7, a full measure of C major 7. You could also do it and a truncated version where it's the 2/5 exist in one measure. So it's 2 beats of D minor 7, 2 beats of G7, and then a full measure of the major chord. And once again, this doesn't need to be in the key of C. You can choose whatever key you would like to write it in. So whether you want to write it out like I did in notation software like MuseScore or NoteFlight, or whether you want to write it out by hand, that's all fine. Something that I would like you to include, as you see in my own example, I include the chords over top of it, right? I definitely want you to do that as well. I want you to write out the chords that are happening in the 2-5-1 chord progression over top of the melody itself. So if you have any more questions about that, feel free to send me a message, reach out to me, and I'll try to explain things further and help you out. And as well, in our meeting for the week, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them there. Our other 2 assignment options for the week are not as complicated, so I'll be able to explain them more quickly. Our second one is to record yourself playing an improvised solo over a tune. So just 1 or 2 choruses is fine, unless you're doing a blues form, in which case I would want you to do more. And think of it like it's a playing test. So all of the things that you would focus on during a playing test, you want to focus on if you're doing the second option, you're recording yourself playing an improvised solo. I want you to use a backing track while you're playing your solo, so you can either pull up something on YouTube, or if you've downloaded iReal Pro, you can use that. That's a great resource as well. So play along with a backing track, play a couple choruses of a tune. Option number 3 that we have is to write an in-depth critique of an improvised solo. So you take a solo from any jazz recording and you're writing a short 1-page critique of it. And in the description, I outline a bunch of different things that I want you to consider in your critique, things such as how the performer is using the melody of the tune in the solo, the use of sequences, the use of space, their dynamics, their articulations. Are they playing melodically or are they playing rhythmically? A mix of both. How are they phrasing their lines? How are they interacting with the other performers? Things like that. All of those different performance techniques that I talk about in the 3rd assignment option are really good things to think about if you want to do the 2nd assignment option. You want to record yourself playing your own improvised solo. Those are all really good things to think about, components of what makes a really good improvised solo. So that's going to be it for this week. You have those 3 assignment options. You pick one of them and turn it in. If you are having issues with the technology for this, or you're just confused and you have questions about the assignment that you want to do, like I said, reach out to me, either shoot me a message, or when we have our weekly meeting, we'll do that on Wednesday, you can come to our Google Hangout and you can ask your questions there. So, all right, sounds good. This is Mr. Brown, signing off.